Our goal is to support multiple collaborators to the blockchain. We've already added the isValidChain function, which validates incoming chains. Now let's add the actual function that replaces the chain with the incoming blockchain if it's valid. So we'll call the function replaceChain. So let's call this replaceChain within the block class of blockchain.js. So in blockchain.js, let's add a new function called replaceChain right after isValidChain with one parameter, a new chain object. So that is new chain for that parameter. And before we replace the current instance's chain with the incoming new chain, we'll want to make sure it's a valid chain. That's where isValidChain function comes in. Before checking the validity of the chain though, it's important that we check the length of this new chain and make sure it's actually longer than our current chain's length. So if the new chain's length is less than or equal to the length of our chain, we'll log a message to indicate that the received chain wasn't long enough to replace our chain, and we'll also use the return keyword to escape out of the function. So first let's check if the new chain.length is less than or equal to this.chain.length. If so, we're going to log a message that says console.log received chain is not longer than the current chain. And then we'll use a return keyword to escape out of the function. Now, to highlight the main ideas from the presentation on multiple chain validation a few lessons earlier, we only want to replace our chain with one that is longer than our current chain for a few reasons. If the chains are the same length, it's likely that they're the same chain anyway. Plus, choosing the longer chain resolves a few possible issues with resolving which chain to accept. For example, the forking problem, where two blockchains submit a new block at the same time. Essentially, choosing the longest chain allows everyone to agree upon a chain with the most valid blocks within it eventually, and resolve a previous forking issue. Now, we can add an additional check. This is where we validate if the incoming chain is valid using the isValidChain method. So let's have an else if statement and says if not this.isValidChain on the new chain. So this will validate the valid chain, and then the not check will say if this part returns false, then we'll also execute specific code which escapes out of the function. And this time we'll log the received chain is not valid for our message. And then we'll also use the return keyword to escape out of the function. Now, if it passes both of these tests and it passes both of these conditions over here, then indeed we've received a valid chain. So we're going to replace our current chain with the new chain. And it'll also be nice to have a message for that. So let's log replacing blockchain with the new chain for this message. All right, great. So that wraps up the replaceChain method. First, it checks if the new chain's length is longer than the current one. It also checks that the new chain is valid. And if both of those conditions or one of them actually fails, then we'll return and log a message. Otherwise, we replace the current chain and log that we're replacing it with this message as well. Next up, let's test this new functionality.